Hello, welcome to Comics Without Capes, a channel where we talk about comics without superheroes. Today I wanted to talk about Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. So this does have spoilers. If you want a spoiler-free kind of vibe check, I have another video on that. But hopefully if you are watching this, you have already read the book or you don't hear about spoilers. I will say that for my reviews, I do not give a number score or anything like that. The reason being, I just find them reductive and I often change my mind on them. I've found that as you kind of stew on a book, it starts to take on a different number amount. And I just think that reducing a book down to that is really difficult, especially something like a memoir. It's hard to rank a memoir in terms of a number scale, right? Because it's somebody's experiences, somebody's sharing a lot of things that are really personal, and I find it hard to put a number on that. Diving into it, initially took me a little bit to kind of acclimatize to the art style and to the politics, but after I did, I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of hooked now. I think I liked probably the second parts more, I think just because of the relatability for me. But I really appreciated the whole thing as a complete work. It was really good. I wouldn't have wanted to just read part one or part two. I think it's something that really you should read the complete if you're reading it. I talked about this a little bit in my vibe check video, but what I really like about this book is that it is about the political landscape being a backdrop, right? We're in Iran when things are really changing up. There's a lot of political turmoil, a lot of things change for what it's like to especially be a woman, right? And the roles that we have to play in certain societies. What I loved about this book was that it really is more personal to me than it is about the politics, but it's sharing what happened. It's sharing the reality of what it was like for one person. And I loved the little aspects of humanity that poke through where it's the risks that people would take just for people they loved, or the ways that there were small acts of rebellion. There was a little part where her parents go on a trip and they try to bring back posters. They end up cutting out a part of the dad's coat so that it's just behind his, so that he just has pointy elbows, but everything is in his coat, so that they could get it through security. And it's that is such a risky thing to do. The risk that they took to do something like that, but just to show their love and their support for their daughter, I thought that was just so beautiful. I also thought it was kind of interesting how this book shows that there's different ways of being anti the system. So there's these more punk-ish people that she meets. It seems like they're very against the system. They're going to fight the man, all that kind of stuff. But in reality, they don't actually have all that much influence and they don't actually end up doing that much. It's almost like an optics thing more than it is an action thing. And you see these other people who are in Iran and who are doing these small acts of rebellion. And in a way, they have so much more of a weight to them than this person who acts anti-system but is not really actually doing anything. And there's other things people could look when they're outside of their homes and stuff like that. They could look like they were the rule-following people of society who were doing what they were supposed to be doing and not opposing all these things. But then in their private homes, they would be having parties and get together and just hang out. It wasn't it was as taboo as people were performing it to be. And I just thought it was kind of beautiful showing those little things, those little acts of resistance that people do kind of almost out of necessity. This book didn't feel preachy to me. It felt like it was talking a lot about a lot of issues, but it's really more about humanity and living to me than it is about any specific agenda to sway your opinion on one thing or the other, besides just to see people as people. I think ultimately this book does a really good job of showing the humanity and the struggles in a place, but also making it relatable enough that you can be like, oh, you kind of wonder, like, what would I be like in that situation? What would my friends be like in that situation? So it does a really good job of sharing that. Thought it was really funny in the book with Marjane Satrapi's early life. She is like having these little contests with her friends, like not necessarily realizing how serious the things that they're like one-upping each other are. So it was like, oh, my daddy went to jail. Well, my uncle did this and this and this, and he was also like, it was a contest of like how bad things were, but also like something that she was kind of proud of. As kids, there is sometimes that like you don't really get the gravity of things, but you still want to like be more impressive. I just thought it was really funny that they like included that she included that in the book, because it's one of those things that like it doesn't really reflect well on her, but I appreciated it so much because it's such a like kid thing to do. The author doesn't always paint herself in the best light. There is a scene that sticks out to me where Marjane sees authorities basically, and she as like a self-defense mechanism is like, wow, I'm doing something that will stand out to them, so I have to divert their attention to someone else. So there's this guy who's just like sitting nearby her, and she basically goes up to these guys and says, hey, like this guy was doing some nasty things to me or harassing me, and this guy gets taken away by these guys and by these authorities. And really, we don't know what happened to him, but it probably was not good. Who knows exactly how bad it was, but it was not good. And the reaction that she had to that at first was not the bravity of that situation. It was that she thought it was funny. And she says it to her partner, and he kind of is like, oh yeah, like I like how you like are resourceful or witty or whatever. And then she tells her grandma, thinking like, oh, this is a funny story. And the grandma's like, what the fuck? That's where it like sinks in of like, what were you doing? Like, that is not cool. And yeah, I think that change from like, oh, haha, it's so funny, to like, where have you lost yourself, was so good. Like, it was such a strong scene, and it's something that really like comes up for her later in life, but it's something that definitely does not paint her in the most positive light, right? It's something where like even reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, like I would feel so awful about this, and like it would be difficult to admit, I think. At least for me, I think that would be such a difficult thing to admit that you did, and talk about as openly as she did. So props to that. I really love in memoirs when the creators admit to some of the flaws or the mistakes that they have made. I think it does really show such strength and integrity in a memoir. The illustration styles are a little like simpler in that you don't have a lot of busy stuff to look at, which I actually liked, because you could really hone your attention in on like the words and then the context of the scene without extra filler stuff. It's just like what's there is there for you to either fill in context or to get more understanding on like how the people are feeling, like all the little details that make up important things, where you're not really focused on, extra details in somebody's room, where sometimes those things for different stories are really important. But in this situation, I don't think they had that much relevance, and so you didn't see them. But when you did see a detail in a room, it kind of gave you an insight into somebody a little bit more. The minimal details in the art made the things that were intentionally in there stand out a lot more. And one of those things for me was noticing the drinks that were so prominently displayed in so many scenes. Tea, hot chocolate, things like that, are all like this part of connection for people. And this book really showed that in like a lot of the little interactions that would happen over time. So many of them involved drinks and the desire to buffer something with a drink. And it was something that just stood out to me in how relatable it was and how consistent it was. The drinks in social situations were far from the only relatable aspect in this book for me. It still has so much relevance in the aspects of humanity, the things that people will do to help each other, the things that people do to hurt each other, the things that people do just to survive. All of that is in here. And I think that's what makes it such a timeless book. And there's also so much that I don't think ever goes away. It just shows up in different ways across cultures. One of the relatable things that really stood out to me in this book was about the control of media and the access to information. There's a few parts where Marjorie is like really into TV, or she's really into books, or she's been told to read a lot of books. And those things give you these views into other worlds, into other people's lives, right? Into other ways of thinking that are so, so important. But if we don't have access to that, if just having information and seeing different things is a act of rebellion, that is terrifying. And it is also scarily poignant for so many places in the world right now. So I just think that it was so interesting to like how we kind of crave that. We crave like taking in things from other views, other places. When I grew up, I had like very minimal TV exposure, very limited exposure to like movies and music. And it's something that I did end up like craving. And you almost feel like you are like needing to consume so much more after you've figured out that you've been deprived of it and that you like see how much of a broad scope it is. There's this desire to just like take on more, to learn more, to be exposed to more ideas. But like it can come at a cost. And I think maybe that's like where we're at now, where we have like so many things we can see. We have so much on the internet that it's like almost just decision fatigue all the time. And the cost that it comes at is like, I don't know where you find the balance between consumption of different ideas and consumption of like just learning more and seeing more, but also not risking your real life for more exposure to that. Like there has to be a balance, and I don't know how you find it. I think this book also really highlights really well the importance of language. I think in Canada, because French is just like forced on you, you don't really have that appreciation for like how door opening it can be to speak several languages. And I think this book and Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime, were really good at highlighting, especially if you come from a place where you don't have much, where you are dealing with a lot of different issues, where you might have to leave at times, where you need any advantage that you can get. Language, the ability to speak multiple languages is so powerful. And it kind of makes me wish that I did speak other languages, but it's just like a skill that my brain is really freaking bad at. But yeah, it's such a door opening thing. And sometimes there's things where like it's a survival thing. Like you have to be able to adapt to a different language. So much ends up happening in this book. I felt like the pacing was awesome. I didn't feel like things lingered too long or went too quickly. I liked that it was kind of all like these little, basically snippets, and they would all have like a little title in them. I really appreciated that, where it was easy to transition mentally between like, okay, this is the end of this thing that we're talking about. Here's another like short snippet of something that was important. For me, flow-wise, that was awesome. I honestly, like when I was reading this book, I like read part of it late at night, and then I like woke up and I was like, did I dream part of this book? Like there's the points where she's like in Austria and she starts like dealing drugs and like ends up on the street. And like, I was like, did I dream that? Did that actually happen? No, that was a part of the book. There's just like a lot that happens in this book. overall, huge fan of this book. I am so glad that I read it at the age that I did. I think as an adult, I have so much appreciation for it. I have so much appreciation for how relevant it is at basically any time. I think this book will age very well because of the timeless issues, the things that unfortunately don't seem to be going away anytime soon. They may get better, worse, move up and down, but I think they're all things that we have to be mindful of. So thanks for joining me for my thoughts on Persepolis. If you have read this book and you have any thoughts that you want to share, any inputs that you want to share, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.